Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello there, and I can't believe it. We made it to yet another Friday. This one being October 20-something or other, 7. And pleasure being with you here today. Talk about stuff, what's going on. I just saw, and this is a subject we have not talked about at all because there's a lot going on, and you don't just get to topics, especially topics of not particular interest to we isolated Americans. But I've been watching and wondering what the hell's going to happen in Spain. Have you been noticing that? I mean, you got a big, huge hunk of Spain. In fact, some of the best part of Spain, Barcelona happens to be in it, Catalonia, and this just happened. The Catalonia's parliament has declared independence. That just happened. Declared independence from Spain. Well, that's like, Texas secedes from the Union. Would that it were so. It'll be interesting to see what the hell happens. Is Spain going into another civil war now? Good God. Fascinating. There's lots of stuff going on, and a lot of which we're not paying any attention to. America is now being time traveled back to 1963 with the dump. I hate that word. I wonder why. The dump of the remaining files on JFK's assassination. Not all of them. Obviously, the most interesting stuff we'll never see. And there's redactions that will fuel conspiracy theorists from now until doomsday, which itself could be right around the corner, as we know. I'm going to wait till the dust settles on that before I start chattering about it, if ever. What else? Funny stuff that happened already today. Donald Trump tweeted. That's not usually funny, but today his tweets have been particularly funny. One tweet was to Fox and Friends, his favorite TV show. And he said something like, Fox and Friends, you're the greatest, or something like that. It was a fan letter. And then another fan tweet. And this was, happy birthday to Lee Greenwood, and make America great again. The Lee Greenwood that he sent that to was a Lee Greenwood 68. Guess there's a lot of Lee Greenwoods out there. And of course, as so often happens with the president's tweets, something goes awry. And the awry nature of this was that Lee Greenwood 68 lives in New York City, I believe, and hates Donald Trump. And for all I know, can't sing. So it ain't the Lee Greenwood he thought he was. And then, never deterred, about half hour later, after tweeters had at him and had fun, he just went right back and sent the exact same tweet, this time to the proper Lee Greenwood. This is what our president's doing in the morning. He's watching Fox and Friends because they spin a reality and a picture that he finds comforting. According to Fox and Friends, I think Hillary Clinton is again the biggest enemy to national security and will be perp walked momentarily into a federal penitentiary or hung for treason, while Donald Trump is an amazing human being, and the Russian collusion story is as good as dead. That's what he hears on Fox. The president declared, I almost said so before that. The president declared yesterday that the nation was in a national health emergency, the opioid epidemic. He told a very personal story about his brother, his older brother, Fred, who was an alcoholic and who, my understanding is, died prematurely as a result of his alcoholism, and how, as the president put it, how Fred warned him constantly, don't take that first drink, don't ever drink, don't ever drink, don't ever drink. And in this regard, Fred was a good big brother because Donnie never took a sip and has not to this day. Can you imagine him drunk? I'm thinking he should maybe try alcohol. Might even him out a little bit. I mean, all those tweets that he sends, those are sober? Wow. I mean, that just puts it in a whole different light. You know, you can give people a little bit of a pass if you say, well, I mean, they were literally besotted. But Trump never. He's always in his right mind, which, of course, is terrifying. But somebody pointed out while he was talking with great adulation about his deceased brother, he said he was handsomer even than the Donald. It's the first time I heard him say anybody was somehow better than he. He gave his brother, said he was better looking, better everything, blah, 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 which I found a little bit shocking. But lest we forget, Donald Trump sought to disinherit his brother's children and grandchildren from their father's estate. And the disconnect between Trump talking with such love about his brother yesterday in this public setting, and the knowledge that he even went after the medical, like health insurance for his grandchild of his brother, Fred. Lest we forget, just a remembrance of the real guy. Also, it appears to me, from what I understand of what his alarm raised yesterday about the opioid crisis engendered in terms of policy, is nothing. Somebody explain to me what it is, if this is such a public health hazard, that we're going to do. My sense from what he and the First Lady said was they're going to resurrect Nancy Reagan's extraordinarily absurd campaign of just say no. That's what it sounded like. That was what the whole story about Fred and how Donald never took that first drink. If you don't take the first one, you're never going to be an addict. And I got the feeling that that's what they're trotting out. Just say no, because that doesn't cost any money, and there's no money attached to this declaration. So if, in fact, we are facing a huge public health crisis, for that to be declared and for no money to be afforded to it, or even a call for substantial funds, is pretty... It's all show, no hat. Is that what they say? No hat, all hat, no show? What do they say? All hat, no cattle. That's a Texan kind of all these cowboy images. All hat, no cattle. That's right. That sort of sums up Trump, doesn't it? Hey, good news for Pittsburghers who are truly pissed off about Anthony Bourdain's Pittsburgh Parts Unknown, because a lot of Pittsburghers said they didn't know those parts either, and they didn't much like him, and they're pissed off. They really are. A lot of consternation. Good news. The entire country of Azerbaijan has declared Anthony Bourdain persona non grata. He cannot, he puts his life in danger if he were ever to attempt to venture across the border. So the Azerbaijanis, they don't screw around. Now, if only Bill Peduto would do what a mayor is supposed to do and declare Anthony Bourdain persona non grata in Pittsburgh, and if we gave him a key to the city, God forbid, get it back. Just saying. I don't think it had to do with, I'm not sure why Azerbaijan is so angry, but it has something to do with him venturing into an area of the country that is apparently not very happy. And so, again, Bourdain seems to rile political sensitivities where he goes, because that's, in fact, what he did here as well, suggesting that Pittsburgh was not perfect. Why? How dare he? Suggesting that Pittsburgh has some problems. How dare he? Oh, God. So, guys, I want to revisit a subject I brought up yesterday because I was incoherent yesterday, and I don't know if my incoherence will rise up again today. But the reason I want to bring it up is I read something that in the Washington Post, I'm just trying to see who did this. I don't even know. In the Washington Post, that was talking about what I was talking about yesterday. This was in today's Post. And I thought, there it is again, in slightly less incoherent form. But there's pictures here at the beginning of some of the men who have been accused. And there was one picture in this Post article that I thought must have been a mistake, because I'm looking at a man who I recognize, who I had not heard any suggestions of sexual impropriety about, but a man who I had met myself, and a man who I looked up to. He's now deceased. I was so stunned to see him there that I thought there has to be a mistake. And I read the article, and well into the article, he comes up. The man is Elie Wiesel. Elie Wiesel, who survived the Holocaust, survived the camps. There's a amazing historical photo of him lying on these bunks, these slatted wooden bunks with certainly no mattresses or anything, just places that these inmates of the concentration camps could be stacked. And he's lying on one with about 5 other emaciated humans and just staring at the photographer who's come to, for whatever reason, document them. And it's such a haunting picture. You look at it and you wonder, is he the only one of these hollowed out faces that I'm looking at? Is he the only one who made it out? I don't know. He, of course, wrote eloquently about his experience, what it meant about humanity as far as he could tell. He worked tirelessly in his life to ensure that no such thing would happen again. I obviously look up to him. So seeing him in the company of Harvey, and this is the picture, in the company of Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, Mark Halperin, O'Reilly, and there's Elie Wiesel. You got to be kidding me. I'm so angry. I'm angry at the Post. Because when I finally got to why they put his picture there, it's this. This is the anecdote. Find it. Okay. Elie Wiesel! Exclamation point. Even Elie Wiesel! Exclamation point. A writer, the Washington Post tells us, named Jenny Listman came forward this week to say that the cherished author, Holocaust survivor, and Nobel Peace Prize winner had once, at an event, posed for a picture and let his hand drift down her back until her back was her butt. That's what it says. And she is quoted as saying, "You are sad beyond measure because you believe there are no good people." Her hero had wandering hands. As someone who has had her picture taken with Elie Wiesel and had dinner with him and spoke to him, I find her story incomprehensible. And I have to tell you this. When you take a picture, and I was talking about this yesterday, when you take a picture, it is not uncommon to put your arm around the person next to you. Is that not true? It's true for me. Is it true for you? When you put your arm on somebody, it tends to, in fact, be on your back. If it goes a little lower, fine and dandy. Here's my guess. Elie Wiesel was not copying a feel of her butt. He was just resting his hand where it was comfortable. That's my bet. He doesn't need that. And I can't imagine, I am sorry, nobody else has come up and said Elie Wiesel did this. It shouldn't even, and that's what this article is about. This article is about, wait a minute here. The dam has broken. We've got allegations coming from everywhere, targeting everybody. And some of them are really egregious. But we're not making any discernment. We're not discerning difference in any of them. So some woman will say, George H.W. Bush stuck his hand on my butt and squeezed, which apparently he did. And she said she was sexually assaulted. I would say no. Wiesel didn't squeeze. It rested. Here's what I know. I sexually assaulted Elie Wiesel. If we're going to just get into this, let's get into it. Because I sexually assaulted him that night. Yes, I did. If what he did to her constitutes a sexual assault, you damn well betcha I sexually assaulted him. And I have to tell you, he was startled. I was startled too. I had no idea I was going to do what I did. My sister witnessed it. She was standing next to me, and she was startled. Without his permission, after he had given a speech to a very large and a huge arena, he came down to shake hands with my family because my father had brought him to Green Bay to speak because of his endowing this Peace and Justice Center at a Catholic school there. And Wiesel, after we'd had dinner, after the speech, after he met my son and all of us, and we just had wonderful time with him. He gave an extraordinary speech. And then he came down and he shook my dad's hand and my mom. And then me. And I just overcome by him. It wasn't sexual. I kissed him. I don't remember exactly because it was it was in the moment. I just grabbed the guy and kissed him. I had tears in my eyes. I said, thank you so much, and God Almighty, and this and that. That was a sexual assault, right? Was it? Huh? Yeah, it was. I didn't ask permission. He did look surprised, so maybe I shouldn't have done it. I violated his space. Big time. What I'm trying to say is, can we get real here? Can we understand there is a problem and keep our eye on what the problem is, understand motivation, understand human behavior, understand that people do need to touch each other and do touch each other and sometimes express things not in an appropriate way, and I probably was inappropriate, I guess. I didn't feel terrible about it. I almost cried seeing his picture up here with his rogues gallery. No, he didn't do half of what I did to him. Put me up there. Let's get real. It does. It makes me want to cry. So, whoever wrote this, and I'm sorry I don't have it, is the whole article, it turns out, is and he's included because whoever writes this is trying to point out that can we start parsing this a little bit more? It's what I said yesterday. If you don't engage in distinction, difference, intent, all kinds of things, situation, the people involved, whatever. If it's just, he touched me, then you get to the point where we are, and I said it's such a shame, where a teacher now cannot hug a child in grade school. A child who might need a hug. It's this zero tolerance shit. It's this inability to make difficult judgments. Not it's either this or it's that. I don't want to live in a world where a man can't put his hand on my shoulder as we're talking about something. I don't want to. Humans connect. When people do what O'Reilly, Weinstein, Halpern, Cosby do, that's clearly criminal activity. It's why they lose their jobs. It's why they become persona non grata. And so much of that goes on. But to have somebody like Elie Wiesel, or even George H.W. Bush with his stupid joke that he did for years, apparently. Every picture you ever see of George H.W. Bush with a woman next to him and his arm behind her, you gotta figure he trotted out the joke. You know who my favorite magician is? David Copperfield. And then he'd squeeze. That's a dirty old man. That's inappropriate. But it doesn't rise anywhere near the level of a Weinstein, an O'Reilly, an Ailes, a Cosby. Can we learn to differentiate? I doubt it. We're not real good at nuance and gray areas these days, are we? We have a call. Caller, go ahead, please.
Hey, Lynn.
Yeah?
I can see what you mean about sexual harassment and sexual assault. There is a difference. But I do think if a woman gets touched on the butt, she ought to just haul off and slap the son of a bitch. I always believe that. That would cure it real fast. Just smack them right in the face. Like, that's what I would do.
You're not a woman. Yeah, you're not a woman. That's what you would do? You're not a woman.
If I was a woman and they grabbed me in the ass, I'd slap them in the face.
All right.
My wife dealt with that. A guy that he used to put his hands down the tops of the women. One time he slapped her with a roller, and she got in his face and said, "Don't ever touch me again anyway, with a roller anyway." The guy got fired after a while for doing this, but that's how you handle it. You nip it in the fucking bud, and that's the end of it.
Okay.
I don't go for keep your fucking hands to yourself. I believe that all in my heart. I don't believe in any of that. But there's a difference between assault and harassment. But I can't keep your hands. I don't even like these people that hug and kiss, but you got to put up with some of it. But that's what I think about
okay,
the whole thing.
Thank you. You brought up another one of my pet peeves. Thank you. I don't like the hug. Thank you. I don't like the hugging and kissing either. Jesus, I travel in many different social groups, and one, probably my main one, engages in that. That's the manner of greeting. You kiss the man, they kiss you. You kiss the women, they kiss you. It's just huggy, kissy. You don't just say hi. Well, it got to the point where, frankly, I said to them, I love y'all, but I'm sick of this huggy, kissy crap. It ain't me. It's not how I greet people. I just like to say hello. So I don't engage in it anymore. But there are people, who do that. You could argue then every time you're with my friends, the sexual assault rate just skyrockets. They're touching and kissing each other all the time. I do like this. The reporter in the Post says this. The sound you hear is a million men shaking in their wingtips and cowboy boots. Men who are experiencing, maybe for the first time, the kind of unease and fear that they've been triggering in women forever. I do like that a lot of men now are maybe, but it's the powerful men who are called out. It's only because of their celebrity that they get called out. As I said yesterday, most of the men who engage in this behavior are not public figures. But they are bosses. And they are people that a woman who maybe wants a job have to deal with, have had to deal with, often to the detriment of their employment, right? So yeah, you can haul off and slap them if you want to lose your job, if you want to ensure that your rise in the company has just hit a plateau. There is a difference in status from harasser to harassee almost always. But think of it. When Bill Cosby was first called out, did anyone really believe it? Nah. And then woman 2, nah. And then women 3 and 4 and 5, and no, all these women just wanted publicity, right? People didn't believe it. What did the number get to? It was in the 40s, 50s? I mean, it was ridiculous. They kept coming. Men never paid for this kind of thing. No one ever believes the women. Ever. But women need to pick their battles. And really, I'm sorry, if you're taking a picture and a guy's hand is half on your butt and half on your waist or whatever, big friggin' deal. If it's bothering you, move it or say something to him like, could you put the hand up a little higher? Just take care of it. But it ain't a federal case, and it ain't something that you then go public with and use to smear a great man who is no serial abuser, I can assure you. Having met him, having any sense of what a person is, this was a good, kind, extraordinary human being. We don't give a shit that women suffer this. Donald Trump. I give you Donald Trump. Think of all the women that voted for him. Think of all the women. A majority of white women in this country that went to the polls voted for a man who they heard bragging about how he groped and harassed women because he could. Laughing about it. Bragging about it. And women went to the polls with full knowledge of that and voted for him. We got a problem here. So Roger Ailes loses his job, but Donald Trump's the president. So Bill O'Reilly loses his job, but Donald Trump's the president. So Harvey Weinstein is in big, big, big trouble, but Donald Trump is the president. So the reporter says that somehow Harvey Weinstein is the one that sent the dam broke and women came out of everywhere now. And that's good because people men especially, who don't behave that way, are finding out that a whole hell of a lot of men do. And they're stunned. So men are being swept away in this flood of allegations, and they are. I mean, but these are men of stature that are being outed and losing their jobs. Roy Price, the head of Amazon Studios, he resigned last week. The publisher of Art Forum magazine, the co-founder of the electronic band Crystal Castles, tons of journalists, the editorial director for Fox Media. All these guys have been outed and are out of their jobs. Mark Halperin. And somebody pointed out, look at these guys, Ailes, O'Reilly, Weinstein, Halperin. These are some of our culture's key storytellers, journalists, movie makers. These are guys who have had and do have the power to shape our ideas of gender, of authority, of power, of us. And they have been in control. The gatekeepers of what we see and how we understand it. We have a caller. Hello, caller.
Hey, Lynn.
Hi.
Hey, Lynn. It's Mike in D.C.
Hi.
I think what's missing from this discussion is that people think that sexual assault and harassment are about sex. Just like you mentioned, they're not about sex. They're about control.
Right.
They're about control. I have control over you. And the weapon that they're using at the moment is sex. You know, and women who say, he touched my butt, I was sexually harassed. Well, George Bush wasn't in control. He didn't have control of you. I doubt any of those women who he made the joke on were afraid.
Exactly.
But listen to Ashley Judd when she tells what happened to her when she was cornered by Weinstein. She's clearly afraid.
Afraid.
That man has power over her. George Bush doesn't have power over her. So the concept that they're the same isn't just delineating or harming the idea of what sexual assault is. It's clearly you don't even understand what assault is about. It's not about sex. It's about power.
Exactly. Exactly. People will never get it. I got a feeling. I think people will never get it. But the reporter in the Post ends up saying, is it possible for things to be wrong and equally possible for some things to be more wrong than other things?
Yeah. Right. Right. Are they all the same?
Or are they all the same? Put it a different way, she says. Some men need to be educated and some men need to be in prison. Yeah, and can we see that, like, some men are educatable, right? And some men are just, they're criminal in their abuses.
Some men are
power.
really just 8th grade boys in suits.
Yeah, a lot of them.
And you have to smack them down and say, hey, asshole, stop it. You know, and guys do that to one another. I know it's hard for women to believe, but when there's that guy in the room that's a jerk, we say, stop it.
You do? I don't know that happens all that much.
I've said it to guys before. Stop it.
Well, yeah, okay.
That's not cool.
I don't know how much that happens.
But that whole 8th grade boy thing, guys being silly, thinking that it's funny, like George Bush thought that's funny. And the best part of that story about George Bush is the Barbara's response. Do you remember what it is?
You're going to end up in jail.
Right. That's the best part of it. So people do address it, you know, when someone's acting inappropriately.
Yeah.
But getting that 8th grade boy to stop his behavior and know that he's not in 8th grade anymore can be difficult.
Yeah.
But comparing him to Bill Cosby or comparing him to
Weinstein or even Trump, no, these are people who are abusing their power and reveling in it. Right. Bastards. Thank you.
Keep up the fight.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Bye.
I'm going to get to some emails here. Laura has written too. She's first talking about when I said Trump's opioid plan seems to be just saying no. Laura says, I wanted to laugh at that. We all know how well that campaign worked during the Reagan years. We've been educating Americans for years that tobacco is bad, and I see young people still smoking. If these campaigns worked, one should only see older people smoking. Well, they often don't work with young people because young people don't necessarily trust anything that authority tells them. I remember back in the day when I was indulging in some drugs, the silliness I saw emanating from Washington or campaigns about marijuana, for instance. You take one and then another. It's the entry drug. It's the this, it's the that, all that kind of stuff. I laughed because I knew the drug. And I was thinking, you are full of shit. So because they went after marijuana, I didn't listen to them about anything. I knew marijuana was as harmless as something could be, much more harmless than alcohol. So they lose total credibility with young people when young people have experience with the drug they're talking about and say, guys, no big deal, okay? Laura then went on to say about this current topic, I am so tired of people currently coming out with all these stupid accusations. Now, this is a woman, okay? They need to get past all this crap of sexual assault when it is only touching your backside during a picture. Unfortunately, there is sexual assault, and I am not playing that down, but people are too sensitive about just touching. See, I'm betting Laura is more my age, maybe not quite as old, but yeah, women of a certain age, we don't get this bullshit, this outrageous, ultra, uber sensitivity. Now, if you are walking down the street and some stranger grabs your behind, then okay, that's sexual assault. But I wouldn't attempt to prosecute the person. I would probably slap the crap out of them if I caught up with them, but touching is a human thing. I suppose one could say I am an inappropriate toucher as well. I, too, am a hugger. I was discussing this yesterday, and it is a shame we are too afraid now to comfort people, and children especially, for fear of reprisal. Also, President H.W. Bush is 93. Maybe a little bit of dementia, but even though maybe inappropriate, I wouldn't mind if he touched my butt. I'd probably, either I'd say, hey, the president just touched my butt. It'd be a funny story. I would laugh at his joke, too, something my grandfather would have done, and I never considered him a dirty old man. Probably he was, but it was funny to me. Yeah, women of a certain age. I don't want to make mountains out of molehills. We need a sense of, degree here. Mark writes, good morning. It's funny that Trump would pick Representative Marino to be drug czar in the opioid world. He's so concerned about, that's why that appointment went nowhere real fast. He was appointing to be his drug czar while he's fighting this war on opioids. The very Pennsylvania Republican congressman who managed to finagle that pharmaceutical bill through the Congress of the United States that tied the hands of the Drug Enforcement Agency from being able to go after the big dealers, the companies themselves. It's a typical Trump thing that he would pick as his drug czar at this time. Somebody who was literally the fox in the hen house. That's what he does. It's Pruitt in the EPA. It's Mnuchin in Treasury. It's DeVos in Education. It's Zenke in Interior. That's who he is what he does. Mark says, I saw a couple of disturbing articles about the Las Vegas shooting. Yeah, that's fallen off the radar. And that is an odd story, isn't it? Timelines that don't work. They're now looking at the guy's brain, the shooter's brain. Lots of luck ferreting around in that. Number one, back to the emailer, the Vegas shooting victims are being targeted with death threats. You're kidding. Death threats by internet trolls who don't want restrictions on guns. No, you're kidding me. And the second one I have heard, a great many of the victims are struggling with mounting medical bills. Well, America, that's a land where you can get shot real easily, but then you can't get, or you can't afford, or you don't have access to the treatment you need for your wounds. Can't afford them. Oops, too bad. Well, so your life just spiraled downward. Too bad. And Mark says, we now know we have a 4-star Marine general. He's talking about the Chief of Staff, General Kelly, who is willing to go public with lies about a congresswoman who has all the gall to be critical of the president. And then Baghdad Sarah uses the all hat, no cattle line. That was in my head. All hat, no cattle line about Congressman Wilson. General Kelly completely made up the story of the FBI building dedication. He even got the cost of the building wrong. So much for the integrity of our military leaders. He has made it clear that he's not the man the media wanted him to be. He was the grown-up in the room. He was solid. He was a good man, an honorable man. Well, no, he's not. That's what we found out. Because anyone who throws in with Donald Trump, if they had any honor going in, it's lost. Donald Trump damages everything and everybody in his orbit. And he has taken down General Kelly. General Kelly has done it himself for refusing to correct the record, for refusing, as an honorable man would do, to apologize to the Congresswoman. I'm going to finish up my email, then we got a caller. This makes me think that it's all the more important for guys like Flake and Corker to stay and fight. They know we're in a bad place, and we can't count on lizards like Ted Cruz and Mitch McConnell to do the right thing. The least Flake and Corker can do is jam up the works. The Senate margin is pretty damn slim. Yeah, but see, they are in favor of the agenda that the congressional Republicans are putting through. They're not going to jam up the works in that regard. So they're no good in terms of stopping the agenda. Their complaint is that Trump, the president, is not fit for the office. And they don't have a lot they can do about that other than what they've done. And what they've done also is attempt to shame some of their congressional buddies to step up with them. And it proves something I've been saying for decades. Republicans are shameless. Most Republicans in the Congress are shameless. You cannot shame them. You cannot. And Mark says, any chance the Kennedy file was not released because Lion Ted's dad actually was the... That would be funny. All right, we got a call. Hello, caller.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, it's Susie from Swiss Elm Park.
Hi, Susie.
I know you've moved on, but I wanted to say something about being inappropriate.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
Somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it was last week. I saw a friend of mine who I was very close with. I mean, you might actually know this guy, but he passed away on Tuesday. And but I saw him last week, and we talked for a long time. And just before we parted, this is something that I wouldn't necessarily do, but I gave him a big kiss on the lips and a big hug, and he looked at me like, what? And I said, I'll see you soon. And I had the feeling that it was like God telling me, you have to, give this guy a big kiss and hug. But he looked at me like, where did that come from? And then he died just a few days later. And I thought, well, maybe somebody was telling me I needed to kiss this guy goodbye.
So I don't know who you're talking about. Was he ill when you went to see him?
No.
Oh, so... Wow.
No, he wasn't. It was very sudden. But I just felt so weird after I did that. Like, I just did the most inappropriate thing in the world.
See, I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't want to live in a world where people can't spontaneously express love.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
know
the
difference between love and assault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you care about somebody, you should be close to them. You should do what you want to do. I mean, not horribly, terribly nasty things, but hugging and all that other stuff should be available.
You had not hugged him before, so he felt startled by that.
Not in a long time.
Okay.
But I certainly didn't kiss him on the lips, and I don't know how long. Probably never. I don't know.
Yeah. He just didn't know how to read it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And then a week later he died.
Jeez.
So that was like, my whole brain went kaflooey.
Yeah.
So sudden.
Wow. I'm sorry.
But it just, it just goes to show you care about the people that you care about.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. We're only human.
That's right.
Right. Thank you. Appreciate the call.
Bye.
Bye. Beth writes, to go along with your comments about the foxes watching the hen house, another person from Big Pharma is now at the Food and Drug Administration. This is really bad for our watchdog in terms of medications. The FDA has hired a senior executive from Mylan. That's the EpiPen crowd. Oh, God. The FDA has hired a senior executive from EpiPen maker Mylan to be a senior communications advisor. Nina Devlin, who was the head of global communications at Mylan, has been hired. Oh, dear. Louise writes, the reasons the lines are blurred between harassment and assault and not much of anything to make a big to-do about, the reason these lines are blurred is because so much is accepted. We need this period of all such behavior questioned to then draw the lines, to acknowledge the problem, to finally address the situation, put all men on notice because all too many cross the line. Age-old situation where the few ruin it for everybody. Isn't that always the case, right? Well, yeah, it's good that it's coming out, but I hope we don't do well in these situations. We always think we're going to learn from them, And instead you get this spasm of accusations and finger pointing and taking down a few, the scapegoats, the ones that will serve for all of the miscreants, right? We'll take him down, him down, him down, and him down. Meanwhile, 50 million others who are unknown to us but have power in their own little circles will continue unabated. Maybe, I hope what happens, I don't know how much it'll better the male conduct, but I'm hoping that it will make more women willing to stop this stuff. Just say no, no. And to look like, and if you do it again, you don't even have to say it. I'm calling the cops, just... But let it be something worthy. So what the reporter in the Post says is we have reached a point. She says, all of the men who do these things are wrong. But we've reached a point where we've got to figure out which of them are evil or which of them are criminal and which of them are just wrong. Allegations are coming by the bushel, and we are in a moment of figuring out how to sort them. This is what I say. I don't have a lot of faith that we'll learn how to sort them properly. In journalism, there's a term called notebook dump. The process of throwing together all of your reporting, every note taken, every interview that you conducted, every scene that you observed, and you just dump it out all over there. Some stuff isn't going to make the ultimate edit. The notebook dump is how you see what you've got, and then you figure out how to move forward, how to put it together, parse it, and move forward. And the women of America right now are engaged in a notebook dump of epic proportion, releasing these anecdotes, these stories that they have held on to for years, for decades, for a lifetime. But again, the reporter says, is it possible for things to be wrong and equally possible for some things to be more wrong? Some of the people are talking about men who flirt. That's some of the accusations have been, he was flirting with me. Excuse me? I want to say, I'm going to take a stand for flirting. Flirting is an activity that both men and women engage in as part of navigating the genders. It's how we talk to each other. We're going to outlaw flirting? Give me a break. I love to flirt. Granted, I'm old now, but I always love to flirt. It's fun. And my sense was always that people I was flirting with enjoyed it. Just as I often enjoyed somebody flirting with me. It's fun. It's part of social interaction. Maybe some people flirt not wisely. Maybe they're aggressive. I don't know. But then that's not flirting. If you let the crazies have their way, there'll be no flirting. There will be no touching. You will have to ask for permission to so much as touch another human being. And I want to tell you, I hope I'm not ever in that world. Jesus H. So, let's leave this with a quote from an extraordinary actress, Emma Thompson, who gets it right. And here's what she says. What we need to start talking about is the crisis of masculinity. That's it. That's it. And maybe we'll save that for another day. Some men might not know there is a crisis of masculinity. I would argue it's every bit as destructive as the opioid crisis. We have a crisis, and it is about masculine. What is masculinity? Because it's playing out in such destructive ways right now. And you can see it everywhere. So let's talk about that maybe next week. Let's talk about the crisis of masculinity, whether you think there's one or not. I'd say there is. Okay. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure. I so enjoy my time with you. Have a great weekend, and we'll come back on Monday and have at it a little bit more. Bye-bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.